Hope you're having a great day. Welcome to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank Studios. We continue to celebrate so many wonderful people across the state who are working so hard to make it such a great place to live, work, and play. Hey, in the second half of the show today, we're going to have the Vice President of Veterinarian Services and Research at Mississippi Aquarium, and we're going to talk about all the incredible work they continue to do with sea turtles, and most recently the Kemp's Ridley sea turtle. And look forward to that. And we'll also just get an update on how the Mississippi Aquarium is doing. And in the first half of the show, we'll go ahead and move right into it. My friend, Senator Jeremy England, it's summertime, but look, he's got a day job. I know you might wonder about that when you see senators in the legislative session, and they're so deeply engaged, as Jeremy always is. But they got a day job, man. So when they're not doing the legislative stuff, in Jeremy's case, he's got a law firm to run. But there's never a dull moment in your life, is there, Jeremy? And welcome back to the show.
Yeah. Hey, thanks, Ricky. Glad to be back. And yeah, never a dull moment. It's really like having two full-time jobs. You know, we're a part-time legislature, but it ends up being full-time, and it needs to be. But that's why they call it public service. You know, you do that while you're doing everything else. And I enjoy doing them both. Wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah, it's great. And as I have said many times, I respect the heck out of you. I enjoy spending time together. And I enjoy when you visit me on the show because you're a straight shooter, and I know you well as someone who does his homework. You know what's interesting? I just have your quick side note. Every Friday I have the SuperTalk Mississippi News team on the second half of the show. So I have Jeff Duncan from NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune, who covers the Saints, and he's on the NFL Hall of Fame selection committee, et cetera. He's just one of the best columnists in the United States. And then after that, we had the SuperTalk Mississippi News team on. Recently, they were at SEC Media Days, and I say it's a pinnacle moment for SuperTalk Mississippi because it gives you the opportunity to see the sports guys, the talk shows leaders, and the SuperTalk Mississippi News team. Their news, incidentally, goes to nearly 50 radio stations across the state of Mississippi, not just the 25 radio stations owned by SuperTalk Mississippi Media. But it's a great opportunity to understand how we own certain conversations. In that case, college football conversation. And there's nothing like it in America, Jeremy. And then I'll translate that over to the legislative session. When the legislature is in session and when there's any conversations relevant to the legislation, to the legislature, even when it's not in session, this is where those conversations happen. Now, other people might claim that's where they happen. But there's no place in this entire state where you can be and not have access to SuperTalk Mississippi, and where all these other radio stations across the United States are moving to some kind of national whatever and don't have local voices anymore, et cetera. Steve Davenport's done literally just the opposite, and it's been a very successful model for him. And you see it, don't you, in the legislature?
Oh, yeah, I absolutely do. As a matter of fact, I have people in other states tell me they wish they had something similar to SuperTalk in their states. I was just talking to a friend from Arkansas recently. He says, man, it's so easy to keep up with what's going on in Mississippi. I just tune into SuperTalk or go back and listen to what's going on. And I do the same thing. When I'm driving to Jackson during the session on the Monday mornings, I turn on Richard Cross and try to see what's going on. Or if it's afternoon, Gerard's got it. And I'll tell you, when you come on in the Jackson area, when I'm listening, it gives me a little taste of home up there. When I'm getting ready to go in for the legislative session, and you just the way that they present the news and the people that they have on from the very top to whomever, right in the heart of whatever issue. It's a really good news source for us. And the sports program is always entertaining. I really like keeping up with those guys as well.
Hey, one of the things when Paul Gallo passed away, God rest his soul, what a tremendous leader and voice he was in this state for over so many years. It's just incredible that he was in that role for so long. It's hard to even believe that he's not here anymore. But at his memorial service, one of the things that was so incredible was to see Democratic leaders in the legislature actually speak at his memorial. And what's interesting now, Paul and of course SuperTalk on certain shows like Gerard's show or Richard Cross's show, it's going to lean conservative for sure. But you know what's interesting is they don't block other voices. They want to hear the other side. They want to have discussion and debates. and to hear, really substantial Democratic leaders speak so highly of how Paul and other shows reach out, how, the role that SuperTalk has played to make sure there are diverse voices in the conversation. The way we're celebrating the new mayor of Jackson, man. I mean, what a wonderful opportunity that is for our state. I mean, we don't have to be divided all the time, do we, Jeremy?
No, and we really shouldn't, and even hearing other voices. I tell my kids all the time, if you get to where you find you don't like somebody, listen to them just as much as you did before, because it sharpens your own views. You're not gonna let somebody change your views, but it's gonna keep you more worldly and knowing everything like that. And Paul did a great job with that. SuperTalk does a great job with that, with bringing the folks on. And you're absolutely right about the mayor of Jackson. My former colleague now, Senator John Horn. Look, the excitement that is around that area from Democrats, Republicans, all across the racial spectrum. Everybody's just excited about what can happen there in Jackson, and we can feel it when we're there. You feel safer now. You see the road work happening that's starting to come along, and now you've got somebody that's very business minded and that wants to attract people and get people back to the Metro Jackson area and push that. And I think that John Horn's ability to work with the legislature, which he learned from being there for so long, is going to come into play as well. So that's all very exciting. And look, we'll follow it on SuperTalk News to find out what happens.
Hey, listen, I feel really, really good about where the city of Jackson is headed, and it was definitely headed in the wrong direction. And it took a lot of years for it to get to where it is now. But you think about the legislature expanding the role of the Capitol Police, but, not as a way that was separate from the City of Jackson Police Department. I mean, they've been working hand in glove together, and what they've done to reduce homicides, for example, is something extraordinarily notable. And so you think about infrastructure. I talk about this with mayors on my show all the time. I mean, I don't care who they are. It comes up. It's part of the conversation. It ain't the sexiest thing in the world, but it's one of the most important things in the world. And that is, you got to have a solid infrastructure, man. You got to have clean water, available water. You got your sewage systems have to work properly, and you have to have the ability to expand. And so when you have, something like making national headlines because you can't get clean water in the city of Jackson, our capital city, buddy, that's how people see it coming in from the outside. So goes Jackson, so goes our state. When you can't get clean water in the state of Mississippi, which is what they conclude from that ain't good when you think about the perceptions of Mississippi. So we had work to do, didn't we?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And when you think of other states, we think of their metro areas when we think of those. You think of Louisiana, you immediately think of New Orleans or Baton Rouge. Alabama, you've got Mobile, Montgomery, Birmingham, and we have Jackson. Of course, we've got the coast, we've got other areas, but Jackson is our capital city, and it needs to be a place that people want to go. They want to visit. They want to go see the history of their state there, which is fantastic, by the way. The two museums and how we run those things up there. The galleries, the Fondren neighborhood is really picking up and blooming. Belhaven has a lot of great things. And each of those little areas, just like big cities, you see they develop their own little local neighborhood leadership. And that leadership works with the mayor's office. And everybody that I've talked to with those areas is very excited about having now Mayor John Horn there to work with. And so he's already reaching out to them. So we're really going to see that come back. And it needs to be a place that people feel safe to go to, that they don't feel like they've got to go, get their car realigned or get their teeth worked on every time they ride down a street, because the roads are so bad. And we're going to start seeing that because the money's there.
Or that we
just got to make sure it gets put to it.
Or that you'll be the victim of a drive-by shooting, in the crossfire or something. That's a big deal too. Hey, one last comment, and we'll finish this part, and then we'll pick it up and talk about legislature on the other side. But as president of Alabama Media Group, I had responsibilities for the newspaper and digital assets in Birmingham, Huntsville, and Mobile, among other things. And I was born in Birmingham. My family is from Birmingham, and there's lots of families that are still there. When the steel mill shut down, I tell you, man, Birmingham was dying on the vine. I mean, everybody moved out of Birmingham and went way, way out into the suburbs and so on and so on. But boy, one of the most incredible stories in the South right now is the reemergence of Birmingham and what's happened in that city. Right. It's incredible what's happening there. I think the same thing can happen in Jackson. I really believe that. I mean, you alluded to one of the reasons that's going to happen. But leadership makes all the difference in the world, bro. You got to have great leadership, or you can't get where you want to go.
It does, and working together. You mentioned safety a minute ago. Commissioner Sean Tyndall, one thing he's focused on is making sure that his folks with the Capitol Police, they work with Jackson Police and with the local folks. They're not taking over, and they were very clear on that. And I thought that was very impressive, the way that they handled that and brought that in with the county sheriff's office and the Jackson Police. They're all working together to make it a safer place, and seeing that happen is a Mississippi success story on its own.
Sean Tyndall is super humble about it. He understands that they're not doing this alone, man. It's going to be a team effort. It's going to take everybody working together, and the communication across not only the law enforcement agencies, but also the community are critical. You got to have all these pieces in place to find resolutions to, in some cases, what are multi-generational challenges that we face. When we come back on the other side, we'll continue our conversation with Senator Jeremy England. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show. I just looked over and saw this huge skin from a big rattlesnake. As I talked to my friend, the Senator Jeremy England from coastal Mississippi, and I showed that just simply because he loves to hunt, and we spend a lot of time in the woods. And this is the time of year you got to pay attention. I don't know if you've been getting out in the woods much, Jeremy, but you got to watch snakes this time of year.
Oh, yeah. Look, I don't go out there without my snake boots on right now, especially the grass is getting high. You're just getting ready to move the logs and cut the limbs off the trails so the tractors can get back to the fields. And yeah, you've got to watch for those snakes because they're out.
It's a fun time of year.
Right there.
Hey, listen, when you look back on this legislative session, I just had the opportunity to spend a full show with the Speaker of the House, Jason White, and it was very revealing. I mean, we talked about all the things that everybody knows about. He got into some detail about his relationship with Delbert and, the Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann and Governor Tate Reeves. And, they spent a lot more time, the three of them together, leading up to the budget special session than most people realize. But it was very interesting to hear him talk about it. He obviously spoke so favorably about the session, hated the way it ended, Right. How do you look back on it?
Yeah, look, it was an odd session. I also hate the way it ended. And look, Jason White's been up there forever. He's only been Speaker now for two terms, and I like Jason. I think Jason's a great guy. I think he's doing great things. And I think what we're maybe seeing is just us, all of us, kind of learning his style. He's got a different style than what Philip Gunn had, and that's just part of the growth process. He tends to be a little more aggressive on some things, and that's his style, and that's great. But the Senate, on the other hand, we tend to kind of slow walk things. I think, at least my legislative opinion, and I think this goes for the overall body of the Senate, is if we make small changes, they're more likely to be permanent. They're gonna fix, and then we can also work things going forward. So that's kind of where we were on this tax talk. But look, it was an historic session. HB1 was at the end of the day, it eliminates the state income tax for the state of Mississippi. I think we may be one of the only states that have done that didn't already have it, that already had an income tax. So that's a good session. And I'm looking forward to hearing that conversation. I know I mentioned to you, I missed it, but look, Jason White's always great when he goes on. He's very informative. He tells it like it is. And so, yeah, that's a great, he's doing a good job.
Well, look. Well, the way I would describe it and the way I mentioned it to him, first of all, HB1, the way that Jeremy just mentioned it, this tax reform bill, it killed several tax, birds with one stone. It covered a lot. I mean, they bit a lot off with this. And what the Senate did is it came in and it built in some fail safes. It made the implementation plan a little bit more careful, maybe than some in the House wanted. But at the end of the day, that's the way they wanted to do it to get it through. And a state like Mississippi, as you pointed out, that the first state to eliminate a tax that already had it, you got to be careful. And the other thing is that I was at the Mississippi Municipal League meeting, as I mentioned, but you got this incredible integration with the cities and towns and counties of Mississippi, and it's complicated. It's really complicated. So you can comment about that. But the other thing I wanted to mention is simply that you look at the steps to align as a high-performing team. Teams come together, they form. and then there may be some debate and disagreement and some storming, and then they begin to really form, and then they begin to really exceed expectations and do amazing things. Well, I think that the big three, you think about the governor, the lieutenant governor, and the speaker of the House, that they're having as a group, think of them as a team, they're having to go through those steps too. There's some storming, and then you add to the political framework and all that, makes it super complicated. But I think maybe they grew a better understanding of one another through this process, and maybe it will bleed over into the next legislative session.
Yeah, and that's my hope, that we take lessons from last session and move them forward. And any grudges that maybe developed last session, leave those in last session and go forward without that. That's how this process is supposed to work. But I'll tell you, if you look at HB1 and then you look at out of Washington, had the big, beautiful bill that just passed, you kind of see how a bicameral legislature is supposed to work. You have your bigger body, the House. In our state, we have 122 members of the House. So you have a lot that was put into that bill. It did a lot more than what HB1 ended up being signed. It had a lot more in it earlier. Well, then it comes to the Senate, and you've got 52 people in there. So we kind of break into it more policy related, and we look into it. We strip some stuff out, we add some things, and then the negotiation goes right back. So, you hear that. And once you understand that and you appreciate that that's how it's supposed to work, that it's going to take time, that it's going to take negotiations, that some feelers are going to get hurt, but other times you're going to once you get that bill to the governor's desk, and then the governor's got a job. The governor has to sign it or either let it become law by not signing it or veto it. So you got to work with everybody and make sure it happens. And if you look at that bill and how that came about, it's a textbook example of what a great system the founding fathers put up for us, that we dig into it. We have to look at every little detail and get it out. Look, sometimes we miss those details, right? We might put a decimal point in the wrong place, as we saw in this one, but we'll come back and we'll work on that. I mean, it's just part of the complexity of legislating.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, too much focus was on that, I might add. But yeah, it's complicated. And you know what? As you talk about the bicameral process with two deliberative bodies, this is exactly the way it's supposed to work. And then you add into it that you've got a lieutenant governor who had a career and still does a tremendous career as a tax lawyer. So he's a numbers guy. His capacity to take in mountains of information is some of the best in this state. So you put all that together, and that's the democratic process. Democratic process is often messy. It's like sausage. Sometimes you don't want to watch sausage get made. And that's just the way it works. And it's supposed to be slow, I might add. It's slow for a reason, because you do not want big mistakes to happen. And in this case, you need the fail-safes. I'm all in on the fail-safes, because we've got to hit some benchmarks for certain things to kick in. That's the way it needs to be, because we cannot put the local cities and counties and even our state in a bad financial pickle because we're hard-headed.
Absolutely. Yeah. And look, this was a 3-year process, right? We heard about eliminating this really more than 3 years, but for the last 3 years, that's been the main issue, was eliminating the state income tax. How can we get to that point? What other things we need to do to make sure our cities are whole? If we mess with the grocery tax, or, what about the gas tax, which was the lowest in the nation by far? And how do we help make sure that our infrastructure is there and that we have funds for that infrastructure without, putting that big of a burden on the taxpayer to do that. So that was big. And I'll give you kind of a preview of what I think is going to be the next big topic, just so that we can all be watching this, is an issue of school choice. I'm sure Speaker White talked about that. I just went to Washington. The Trump administration has been talking about that. And so I imagine we're going to see a big push for a big, huge, universal type school choice change in Mississippi. But again, from the Senate side, I hope that we look at it in steps, because we're so much different than other states, even the other states around us. We have a local option for our school funding and things like that we have to be aware of. And we have great public schools, especially here on the coast, and we've made such good strides, but you're going to see that push. And so that's where, for all of your listeners, I want them to watch that, and they'll be able to watch from day one kind of how that comes together. And who knows, it might be 3 years, might be 4 years, but we'll see some changes to that, hopefully, that everybody can come together on and agree with.
See, I'm actually all in on this conversation about school choice, and I have been for a while. I've done multiple shows about it, and the speaker and I did close the show talking about it, and we actually committed to coming back, and we're going to spend a whole show. So it's not as simple as just passing. It could be as simple as passing some legislation that would enable us to draw down some of that money. I think it's very, very clear that we're going to have a very, very comprehensive conversation in this state, and it's not popular because a lot of the public education leaders push back on this. But I believe, I've said this many, many times, but I believe that the fastest way for Mississippi to move forward, to advance the ball, is education, and we've got to deal with it. And when we've got weak education systems in place, we've got to get parents the ability to either go to private scenarios or do homeschooling or whatever it might be. We just don't have the ability to transfer the money, have the money follow the child to whatever the parent chooses they want to do. And so it's going to be a complicated conversation, but I have no doubt in my mind that eventually we're going to have school choice and all of its bells and whistles here in Mississippi. That's where I think we're going to land.
That's right. Well, it's going to increase competition, and competition is good in every aspect of our lives because it makes people want to be better. It makes people, it makes iron sharpen iron, right? And I think we're going to see that. You might not see a big move from private to public to private here on the coast, and you shouldn't. We've got great schools here, but other areas of the state we've got to keep in mind. And it's all about having those options and having that choice for parents to make sure that their kids excel. And we're just doing so many good things here in Mississippi, and I think that is going to be one of them. But I hope it's kind of a slow process so that we can kind of build in some of the growing pains to happen in amount of time instead of throwing it all in and hoping it comes out the best.
Yeah, we can never lose sight that over 51% of Mississippians live in rural areas, and they don't all have access to the same kind of educational opportunities we have here on the coast. Jeremy, it's been a pleasure to spend some time with you, my friend.
Thanks, Ricky. I always enjoy it. I hope to see some big deer pictures from you this year.
I hope so, too. I want you to mostly see my grandkids and me out in the woods together. That's what really makes my heart well. Hey, listen, have a great day, and we will see you tomorrow.